I crossed my first $100,000 online exactly 4 years and 1 day ago. And since then, I've learned a ton. And yesterday, I was on a call with someone where they asked me this question that kind of stopped me mid sentence, where they really said, why do you run your business the way that you do? And it wasn't about how I run it, but more so, why do I run it this way? And I realized I've never truly addressed this publicly because here's the truth, like it is not by accident, it's 1,000% by design. The hours I work, the systems I use, the offers I sell, they're all designed to give me freedom, right? And I'm going to show you exactly how my business runs behind the scenes here today, right now in this exact video, the real structure, the real workflow, the tech, the team, and the time, and how you can actually apply this simplicity into your world so you can scale. All right, so let's go ahead and get right into it. My name is Justice Severin. If you don't know, I make these videos here for coaches and creators who are really looking to build a wildly profitable personal brand, and I want to make sure that this is no different here today as I help you to once again build in the right systems, mentality, philosophy, all that. I like to talk a lot about tactics and strategy, but today I wanted to kind of remove the veil and show you a lot more of the behind the scenes that really is just like a lot of the day-to-day operations, how that functions, and more so you can kind of see just how my mind works within this business, right? Especially when I think about back to where I was to where I am today. So, of course, as always, if this is your first time watching the video, seeing me, drop a comment new down below. I'd love to see your name pop up. Absolutely, if you're returning, you already know the deal. Hit the subscribe button. You clearly like this stuff. Want to make sure you're getting locked into every video. I've been dropping them on Wednesdays for the past 4 years, and the reality is it's not going to stop anytime soon. So definitely make sure you stay in touch with all that. And when it comes to this, if you have any specific questions as well too, like maybe for yourself, like break down a little bit of your workflow, your team setup, any of the tech stuff. Like let me know if there's a question there where you're like, Justice, I feel like I should optimize something, but I'm not sure where, when, or how. Let me know. I answer all my comments that get dropped down below, so I'll make sure to hook you up. But like I said, with all this, like I'm just really trying to make sure I can leave you some value here. So I'm not trying to really dance around, beat around the bush. I'm thinking let's go ahead and just jump in if that's cool with you. So I really want to break in number one, my overall philosophy. Like my whole mentality these days is built off of a really run your business on your own terms type of mentality, right? I really view this as, it's the mindset of I want to build a lifestyle business. I came from the 9 to 5 accounting space. Like I'm not trying to go ahead and build a business that feels like a 9 to 5. When in the beginning, you can argue that, you don't really know you don't know how to build something like that. And in a sense, you can't even operate as if you do or like try to too much early on because it does take the trial and error to understand like what you resonate with, what you don't, what you jive with. I see it all the time. When you're building a business, a lot of the time, you really need to start building it based off of your personality. And so you need to kind of potentially have some trial and error with certain strategies as a whole, if you will, high level strategies to see whether or not it vibes with you, right? And once again, that's coming from the team to the tech to the day-to-day workflow, right? And so I'm going to break down what the behind the scenes actually looks like for me, within my 7-figure business. So you can go ahead and take these topics and run. All right. So really, once again, this is what I've done, kind of as a whole. I don't want to even for this video here get into like what I've talked about with offers, because I don't really want to take up a ton of time on that with this video here today. I've done plenty of offered trainings and stuff like that as well too. Like feel free to check that out. I got videos on the channel there too. There's a lot of good that I'll be getting into today, so I want to make sure that it gets the time of day, right? It sees the light because I got a lot of good I really want to dive into here. So when I started really growing my business, especially like successfully, I started getting advice from a variety of successful people, right? And you could argue this advice kind of came from, if we talk at surface level, it's like, you need a big team, right? I need a 10-person team. You need to be posting a lot, right? You should be getting your stuff all over the place. You need to be on 27 different platforms, right? AKA you need to be repurposing all over as well too. And at some point you start to realize you've got to build your business on your own terms while remaining successful. I was at a point where in reality here, I was seeing results. I was making movement. I was gaining traction in a strong way, right? Like we're talking at this point, I had my first $30,000 month, right? So the importance though is finding this balance while remaining successful, because you'll hear a lot of noise, and especially from people that like I paid good money for it. I've paid over $18,000 being a mastermind, right? And so it's like, yes, you will find these pieces, but at the same time, we've got to make sure that we keep the balance when starting out. So really, I want to show you what kind of overall balance looks like for me. As you know, I'm a dad, I'm a girl dad over here. I'm a husband, right? And so what that looks like, still being able to, drop my kids off to school, pick them up from school, have complete time and location freedom, and still genuinely enjoy what I'm doing inside of my business. I think to have the combination of all that, which is my, like, once again, when I think back to when I was an accountant back in 2020, and I started back in 2013 as an accountant before I went full time in 2020. It's like I really did not enjoy my life back then. As far as my business, like, yes, I was. It's not like I wasn't. I don't mean to say it was a smile. I wasn't depressed, but at the same time, I really did not enjoy what I was doing, and I was always hunting for a way to get out. So, like, that's what I mean. Where now I live a life where I'm not hunting to escape it. And so that's what I want for you. So, really, I'm gonna basically break this down into three main pieces. Okay, and really, it's gonna be the team, the tech, the workflow, right? I want to just break down all three of these, make sure you got this hitting home for you so you can leave with some actually, like I said, just get my unique perspective. I want you to see behind the scenes, and I don't usually get to share that. So I'm thinking let's go ahead and lean in with this first section. Number one, team. In 2020, let's just go back to there for a moment. I only had one other team member to start the year, right? My business was running at that point about 15 to 20K per month. January 2021 was my first ever 15K month, right? So that's where from there things started to really pick up. So, it was really like I actually didn't get my first team member until January 2021 that month. But from there, that's when in 2022 I actually grew my team to around 11 team members, right? 11 team members here. Now, that sounds impressive, right? That sounds impressive. It looked impressive, but too many people, too many meetings, too many moving parts, and not enough actual growth to justify is what I would say, right? Like I remember back during then, I remember hopping on a call. It was back-to-back calls one day, and I hadn't eaten yet. That's like I hadn't coached anybody yet. I was doing admin and approvals kind of all day, and I remember just like having this realization where it's like, this ain't it. Like this, and in a sense, and I will say, like, even though I had that thought then, like I still didn't make an immediate change right away, but it's just like having this vibe, like this ain't it here. I always say, like, where energy goes, energy flows. And I could tell that I was giving too much energy into too many different directions, right? So I remember it was literally like 4 days into 2023. I intentionally cut back my team drastically down to 4 team members, and I have not looked back since. Right? Like I said, less is more. I will always say that. The more people are required to give energy towards, the less they're going to benefit. So I flip that equation on its head, right? And really, a lot of what I teach inside of B2C, like, that actually comes from this exact mindset. Being able to run a lean, profitable system that frees you up and does not bog you down, right? So if you're someone really who's kind of in that messy, middle of that messiness, if you will, right now, like, this is going to definitely give you some clarity, right? So it's the same philosophy I give to my clients. Like, I literally just last week I brought a new client and this was right inside my brand of clients there, and once again within less than 7 days she closed over $2,000. And this is, once I was saying this, I bring this up. I've had people that have bigger initial results, but the point being is that I realized that for her process just needed to be simplified in a way that she was prioritizing the right actions. And that's what I was seeing in a sense too within my own team back then in having these realizations. So, honestly, like time and time again, I realized with this stuff, it isn't fluff. Like, it's what makes the difference between a successful business and a non-successful business, if you ask me, right? So before I dive in, like, I want to tell you that, like, I do not have, like, when I say dive in, like, I want to now break down, like, all right, what does my team actually look like? Because literally, like I said, I went from 11 team members in 2022, and I brought it down 4 days in 2023 to 4 team members. I am still at that same level right now today. What does that now look like for me as far as that side goes here? Like, I want to break down like what each team member is, so you can really say tangibly what is it that even looks like for someone who's running a 7-figure business right now. What does their team actually look like? Because it may not be what you think. So, but now before I dive into that, I want to tell you, not one position, not one of those team members, right, is actually on my team's roster is a coach. And I share this because that used to make up the majority of my team, right? Where really it was my coaches my coaches on my team that were coaching my students. It's a very common thing inside of the industry where that's the case. You got the main guru, quote unquote, that was myself back then, and I was having my junior coaches lead my clients. And now I'd rather I'd rather lean in and spend more of my time coaching my students and let team members help me in the sales department more than anything. Because I know the more hands-on I get with my students, the better results they get, and the better results they get, the easier it makes for the marketing. And the easier it makes for the marketing, the less aggressive I have to be on sales tactics, the less I have to rely on like getting so in the weeds and like just trying to go so crazy in that direction. Once again, I'm sharing this because this is a philosophy that most people are not teaching inside the space. It's all around how can we have the best sales script and all this kind of stuff, where what I've just seen is if you can give yourself more leverage in the marketing and the client results department, these things are naturally going to do the heavy lifting for you. And now I can just prioritize my time and really get into sales conversations with people who are already pre-sold on what it is that I do. And at the very least, like if I'm going to get on a call with somebody, I want to really make sure that's the case. So now what does my current team look like? Right now, I've got, like I said, 4 team members. 2 of them are sales team members. Let's break down the difference between those two people. One is a virtual assistant for my DMs, right? So for that, what does this do? What does this accomplish for me? It protects my time and it acts as the initial pre-qualifier in my sales process, right? This was the first hire I ever brought on to the business, right? And for me, it's been something that has just been so good when it comes down to like my organic side as well too, because really I'm big on automation, but at the same time I think that having a personal touch is huge, and so I want to be able to have that without having to be bogged down into the system myself, right? As far as like being in the weeds every day, I need to give myself more time freedom, and that's why I'd rather go this route as opposed to using something strictly like a mini chat that just feels super automated and people can just tell. I think that people have now a mindset broken where they're thinking, well, like that's not you talking to people every time. I was like, well, I mean, they're talking on my behalf. All right. And so if that's an issue with you, fine. But in reality, it's like, how do you want to build? Do you want to go ahead and build off of leverage and something that makes sense for the business long term? Or do you want to go ahead and set yourself up and now you're going to be taking more losses, but at least you sleep better at night for some weird reason. Obviously, you can tell the side that I sit on. So that's the first sales team member that I have. The second sales team member that I have is kind of the more one that you'll see is typically like more, this is an optional team member. To be honest with you, I'm going to get into what I mean by that, but really this is my triager, right? So for that, what this triager does is basically protects my time, right? And he acts as the gatekeeper inside of my business. And I say that this is the only optional team member that I have because the way that I run my business, like I could absolutely remove this, but I view it as an extension of my marketing, right? To really move my audience members, just kind of move them along faster, right? Because I like to sell in 3 main ways as far as getting my offer out there. Number 1, and this is no particular order, but let's say 1, sales calls, 2, offer docs, 3, virtual events, right? And so what does this do? So this position here, like what this does is really it helps protect my time. So I'm limiting the number of calls that I'm personally taking and getting on myself, right? I used to take, back when I was first getting started in this industry, I was taking 10 to 15 sales calls a week, right? That might sound like a lot. That might sound like, oh, well, some people are striving to take 40 calls a week. Like, once again, you get to a certain point where it's like, yeah, I could probably be making, and this is how this conversation started with the client I was talking to as well, too. It's like, yeah, if I want to make $1 million a month, right? I started thinking about all the things that I have to do that. And I just know that what comes with that, I'm just not really interested in, right? And once again, things can always change. But for me, like I'm very much more satisfied with the goals of 6-figure months compared to what that would look like for me having to get a 7-figure month. Like I said, I just know I'd have to have a much bigger team, a lot more headaches basically is what comes with that people aren't willing to talk about, for where the profit margins, they're naturally going to shrink as you start to hit up those revenue numbers, which no one wants to talk about the profit, right? Everyone's just talking about revenue. So that's why I kind of treat it this way. And so when I bring this back here too to the triage in this role here, I only am taking about like, I don't take any more than 10 sales calls per month, right? And so for me, like that's, and then once again, some people are like, oh, well, no, sell without sales calls, blah, blah, blah. I do sell without sales calls a lot. But the reality is like, that's 10 hours in a month. It's not that much. And this kind of goes towards a theme of where I just think that so many people are trying to automate and delegate and do all these things too soon in the business, right? Could I not take any sales calls at all? Sure. But for me, it's like, because I'm really cherry picking the right people, I just still see good benefits towards it. Where for one, like in B2C, where I coach people, I really, I want to kind of see who's coming in, right? Because if I'm working one to one with somebody, I like to have a good feel. So it's like at the same time, you could argue like this is an interview process for me in the same breath. So this is the way I see this here, where it's, I guess, honestly, this role, you could even see if I'm being vulnerable as well, too. Like, this is a place where I still struggle with in the sense of how much do I need that triager or not? I know I could do without it, but I have, he's such a great team member there in this role, and it absolutely pays for itself, right? So, like for me, and that also that role is 100% commission. So I'm not losing money unless a sale is made, and I'm not even losing. So it's all win-wins as far as I'm concerned there too, right? So those are my kind of first two team members. Now my third team, and those that, like I said, two team members in the sales department. My third team member is my virtual assistant. That's more so kind of acting as my executive assistant, right? So for that, what she does is she's helped me make my life just way easier with all the admin work. She does a lot of help, especially with my clients, the stuff that is, once again, she's not a coach, right? But she's helping with the admin stuff as far as like make sure they have access to what they need, making sure like all my one-on-one calls are recorded. So like she's giving that access to those recordings to my clients. She's packaging up my inner circle calls for all that. So a lot of this stuff that just, once again, like I don't need to be doing, I'm putting on her plate, and now it frees up my time, right? So that's a large part of what she's doing. But then additionally, she's helping to really repurpose my short form content and emailing my list, right? So I'm not sure if you're familiar, I got my 30-minute coach system. I've got a link for that down below if you're interested. But really, what I do there, and this is a large part of what we actually teach inside of Brand to Clients as well too. But really, it comes back towards how can we really get smart with repurposing content? And so that's where, when you get really good at this, you can start to delegate that. And now this is a large way that I'm able to now free up even more of my time and location freedom while still remaining effective with my nurture process. I'm really, really a strong believer in having a strong ecosystem. And through that, it's through this activity on social media, this activity with emails, this activity of building assets that you can now go ahead and put across your ecosystem to get people to raise their hands passively, right? These curated opportunities, as I like to call them. So those are kind of two large roles. Then the third part is I also do run a virtual assistant agency, and so she is also the manager of my virtual assistant agency as well too. So she's really running that as well too. So and once again, a lot of these things you could argue in the beginning took time for me to set them up, but now it's like that's why I'm so big on having SOPs and getting to this point where you can delegate, because now things can run smoothly without you, and it's about just making sure that the operations are dialed in. So that's my third team member. Then my fourth team member is my tech support member, right? And so for that, so I run a software called All-in-One. It's called the AAO system. And so for that, I also have now a tech support member where that is his whole job. He takes one-on-one calls with all of my clients that use AIO. And then at the same point, he also runs a weekly inner circle call inside of my coaching program to help all my students with that too. And then really it's just helping anything and everything with that software as well too. So that is my team. So once again, just to reiterate and highlight, like what doesn't exist there. Like I said, there's no coaches there, right? I am coaching all my clients, which is why I keep it very tight knit, like I said, to get them results. When I say, and as you can tell, like I'm using virtual assistants. I'm not, and I really, outside of virtual assistants, it's really only, as you can tell, like really kind of one main team member, I guess two main team members, right? Between the tech support and the triager that like are really, that aren't of a virtual assistant status. And I just bring this up because I only have to spread my energy so far. Like really, I view it as those two sales team members, like they're in the same department. And so like that's very, and let me even bring this up so you can see what I mean. I used to also, back when I had 11 team members, I was running daily meetings, right? Daily sales meetings all the time. So burning me out on that. And so now, and even like, it was back like, I think maybe late last year, late 2024, I think I was running like a weekly sales meeting with just those two team members, right? And so it came down to a point where I was like, this is still overkill. So it's because really I just want to get good at, like, I need to give them what they need so they can go out there and do what they need to do. And so that's what's been really good, is just making sure I can equip these team members with what they need so that I don't have to be pouring energy into that, especially unnecessary energy that these meetings would typically turn into, the monotony of doing that over and over there. So that's just two big things. And once again, so my flow now is I basically shoot to have a monthly meet with my sales team. We stay very connected inside of Slack, which is where I talk with my team and my clients. And then really with my executive assistant, Mary, talk to her every other week. We have a one-on-one meeting, and really that sometimes gets spread out even further. And then for my tech support, we plan to have a monthly one, but sometimes it ends up being every month, every other month. So like I said, I just made it where it's like I want things to run on their own so that I can really have my time and energy dedicated towards creative tasks. Like allow myself, it's like creative tasks, and then at the same point, give myself space that I can go ahead and just take the day off if I want. Have more time off. This is going to lead into some of this other stuff, but these next few sections here. But that's where the emphasis of the team one. So hopefully that makes sense here as well too. Let me know if you got any further questions to that as far as how I'm running the team side. But hopefully that makes sense there. So beyond that, now let's get into the tech stack and the productivity. So for me, the exact workflow and tech stack that kind of keeps my business running lean and profitably. So for me, like my main, as I mentioned a little bit earlier here, my main software I use is my all-in-one software. It's called the AIO system. And so for this, I run about, let's say like, that's like 90% of my tech stack, right? It's taking care of funnels, email marketing, contracts, texting, social media, cross posting, just a bunch of other stuff, right? It's like so much of what I'm doing there is there, which is why I say it's like 90%. Now, what I use outside of that, I don't typically share too much. That's kind of what I wanted to take a moment to share here a little bit more with you too. So one of the big products that I love, softwares that I love to use is an app called Motion. And basically what Motion is, it's really an AI scheduler, right? And it really helps me to plan my day. And so I've used other ones in the past. I used to use one called Sensama. You can use a Google Calendar and just like time block your way that way too. But this has been super helpful for me, honestly, just to remove some more of the thinking. And in a sense, like using AI, trusting AI to help me. But I'm using it in the smart way where I'm building in how I want it to help me, right? So if you want, I'm more than happy to make a video on Motion and how I use it in my coaching business. I really do love that software. But regardless, this has helped me to not only just focus on the productivity side, but help me to really optimize, once again, not just how I tackle projects in the business, but how I even go about organizing them and really building out the workflow and making sure that they're actually getting completed, right? And especially, I say this because we all have big to-do lists, right? And so this has been very helpful for me to really balance out and prioritize this. So that's what I want to see here for you, just like how it's one thing having these projects you want to tackle, but that's for just the way that I'm able to build out workflows inside of that app. It's so good because like I can build it out where it's like I've got it can have projects that can be done. Like some projects I do on a weekly basis, like these YouTube videos, I do them on a weekly basis. I do run virtual events on a more monthly or / quarterly basis. What happens when a new client comes on board? So a lot of these things, I can now create projects, and now I can create these workflows that, all right, now give me these tasks to do once I decide this is going to happen. And that has just been so huge for me where once again, it's removing me having to do the same stuff over and over again. It's removing the thinking process as well too. I forget who it is. It's like Mark Zuckerberg or something. Like he wears the same outfit every day, and it's not like he doesn't put on the same exact T-shirt, but like he has like 10 of the same T-shirts, right? I don't know if it's him or somebody else, but the point being is like just removing this little bit of thinking, it frees up more energy for what really matters and what you really want to pour your time and energy into. So that's been a big thing for me, just using that app. I love it. Like I said, more than happy to share more about that later. I also use Descript to go ahead and edit my YouTube videos, and then from there, my virtual assistant makes short form content out of them, and we're able to repurpose content out of them. As you can tell, I keep my edits very simple, as you can tell from this video and others, right? So, and once again, I'm happy to show you, more than happy to make a video on Descript if you want, if that's something just to kind of see how I use it. But yeah, so Descript is what I use for my video editing. And then from there, another thing I also use and love is a productivity timer. So you can even see I've got a productivity timer that I'm using right now. This is to help kind of keep me on task and on time. So I'm like, hey, I don't want to be sitting on this YouTube video recording forever. So that's where for me, it's just been super helpful, right? And this just helps me to stay on top of things. Like call it the ADHD brain, like, or whatever it is, whatever, if you will. It just helps me to, I just feel like this is also something that I have a tough time living without, because otherwise I'll go over time and I just lose track of time, and 5 minutes turns into 50 minutes, And so I can just make sure that I'm actually progressing onto other tasks that I've set out to get, take care of any given day, right? And when really this leads right in towards the kind of, right towards the next kind of section here, right? So really this is why I'm calling this kind of like the tech stack, the productivity stack here, this section. So between the team, the tech stack, and the productivity, now I want to get into the third section and final section here, which is really the business workflow. This is one that I have talked about some of this stuff a little bit before in videos, but This is something that's always changing. It's always changing and updating. And so it's good for me to share this, I think, with you just so you can really see where I'm at now. And like I say, I think that it's when it comes to your date, and when I think of this as the business workflow, the day-to-day workflow, this is something that should be kind of changing because once you get into a routine for too long, you almost start doing things just because you feel like you're supposed to be doing it. And so that's when it's usually good to reassess because all the times things can change here. So I want to walk you through like this. What does this look like for me with my business workflow in the business more? So for myself, I wake up between 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. every morning. When I say every morning, I mean Sunday to Saturday, right? So 7 days a week, I'm waking up between them. You may be thinking, Justice, that's a wide range, right? But that range has served me well, right? For me, and let's get into a little bit of why, and you can see how my day kind of flows from there. Um, for me, I write my content daily, right? And usually earlier in the day, right? So really, it doesn't always make sense from a productivity standpoint, batching to be writing content like that every day. But for me, I really just like that. Like, I feel like it allows me most authentic and write my rawest content as opposed to, and I've always felt this way, honestly. Like, I remember early on, even like 2020, 2021, people talking about, oh, I got this thing that you can batch out your content for 30 days. And now, don't get me wrong. I can batch out content, especially when it goes to my short form content and stuff like that. But I do really enjoy the benefit of being able to put out raw content on it, as I need to, if I want to, on a regular basis, which is a part of the reason I love my email list because I can get up there and just share it if I want to as well too. Just like what happened, yesterday. There's so many good reflecting points. So that's why I love doing that. Plus, like I said, because of my repurposing strategy that I teach within 30-minute coaching system, like I'm able to have a virtual assistant tackle a large part of the content that I'm actually putting out into social and my emails as well too. So it gives me this great balance, right? But really, in general, the majority of my time in the business is made for creative work, right? And the way that I have my day structured is really I focus on this early morning. So once again, this is about if I'm waking up from 4 to 6 a.m., I usually spend about 45 minutes to an hour kind of waking up, right? That can look different. I guess if you want to know more specifics, I'll usually wake up. I like to start my morning off with, half of my water bottle's on here, but half a water bottle full of water, lemon, right? And so and a half a lemon. I'll drink that, and then I'll go ahead and refill it all the way to the top. I usually have a 32 ounce, water bottle, and I'll refill it to the top with a little bit of that water in there, so because I love that taste of lemon. It's just good for you as well too with your digestion, especially before you have anything else in the day, which is why I have that kind of first half bottle worth. And then from there, I'll go ahead and fill it up all the way with water, and then I'll put in some either sea salt or Celtic salt, just to help with some electrolytes, right? So that's what I'll do in the morning. So that it's like honestly, I'll take my time doing that because I like to, I want to wake up, and especially if my wife is up there 2 in the morning, like we take this as a good time to really just kind of have some good conversation before, like, and there's no doubt she's a little groggier than I am in the morning, so it's like hopefully the timing works out, and I just need to kind of, it's like a great timing for me to meditate really in the morning, and I don't even mean meditate like I sit there and go and get the formation. I used to do that, but now more so my meditation is like I go outside, especially right now it's summertime. Like I go outside on the deck and I sit there and I just try to look up at the sky. There's a thing where if you can get sunlight into your eyes early on, it's a very powerful piece and helps to wake you up, help wake the body up naturally. So I'm really just kind of doing that in the morning. So really I'm doing that. And then the other thing I'll usually do as well too, I love playing basketball. I love working out. But I like playing basketball more than working out, to be honest. It's my favorite form of exercise. So I also will foam roll and stretch a lot in the morning as well too. So, and when I say a lot, it's like, that takes me like 10 to 15 minutes. So this is all the stuff that kind of happens in the first 60 minutes, right? So once that's happened, and then also, let's say this too, then I'll usually have my first cup of coffee after I finish that half bottle of water. So now from there, this is when I get into the content creation side for the day. And not just the content creation side, the creative work for the day, right? And really, I'll try to stay in this pocket anywhere from, like I said, as you can tell, it could potentially be from around 5:30 in the morning, all the way up until like 2 p.m. But as I say that, you're thinking like, dang, Justin, you're working a lot. So the reality is though, like, I take a lot of breaks, and I used to. I remember somebody used to. I had a coach back before. They were more in the mindset coaching as well too, and they were. I just remember too. One of the things they were telling me was like, just like this seems like a bad thing. They're taking these long breaks, but I remember eventually realizing like, well, they don't have the full story. Like I wake up very early, so I used to back then work even later. So it's like I feel like I earn these long breaks. Slash, like I'm working a lot of hours, and I just thought always see this as one of the beautiful benefits. So even though now I still wake up early, but I don't work as late. I work late 2 nights a week. And I'll get into that based off my theme days as well too. But basically, that's really just to kind of make one slot, pretty much have an extra slot or two for clients as they need. But like I said, I'm very flexible. So with that there, I take a lot of breaks. Like I mentioned, I drop my daughters off to school in the morning. I pick them up from school right in the afternoon. I almost always take at least an hour break for breakfast. A lot of times I'm taking a 2 hour break to go to the gym in the morning there as well too, like a late morning gym run. Also, I all the time, a lot of the time I'm taking like at least an hour to 2 hours for lunch as well too, like a lunch break. So I've just kind of found this flow where once again I'm doing this full time. So like I like having large sections of time to just go really deep. And then, as you can tell, my afternoons are more so for like meetings. That's why I have my coaching calls more often. Maybe if I have a sales call take, I'll do that more often. Just meetings with the team in general as they pop up. As you can tell, I don't take weekly meetings with my team here, right? So this is how I tend to build off my flow is I want to make it where I can spend majority of my time with creative work, right? That's where, and especially when it comes to, I know the earlier half of the day, that's when I can really squeeze as much juice as I can. So that's when it's always nice when I can get into like the 2 o'clock range because it's just so much time I have to really get into the weeds there, right? So that's what I love doing. And so really for that, like I said, I told you how I work late, maybe like twice a week. But then one thing I also love that I do here is I have theme days, right? So I think that's another powerful piece. So I have theme days where basically within my week, I treat it where Monday, Wednesday, and Friday are dedicated towards more marketing and sales projects, where Tuesday and Thursday are dedicated towards client success projects. And this has been super helpful to not have me mixing and matching my days so much. And because I organize my projects, like I mentioned, in motion in advance, it makes it where I can just really just show up and start executing. And so that's where I'm such a big believer in like having these things prepared in advance, right? Like for me, like one of the things I always am talking about is how I always plan my days the end of, so like let's just say for today's a Wednesday. I already planned out my day inside of my journal. Like I talk about this thing idea called the big three. I plan these out in my journal the night before. It's the final thing I do before I wrap my day up. So like between that and then also I'll sometimes do that inside of on a weekend, right? Because weekends, I always love weekends too, where I'll work sometimes weekends in the mornings especially, right? Where because I still, like I said, I'm waking up early as well. So something about that just early time, the neighbors aren't up yet, the family's not up yet. It feels like just I'm the only one awake in the world, and so it's like that's a great time just with silence, and I can just ease in. There's something powerful about that where it's just like I just know there's no calls, no one's looking for me on the weekend, work wise as well too. I just really love having that aspect there, just to tap into. So really, that's been really powerful. And so one of the things I preferred and gotten really good at, which is not just making lists, because making lists, I love making lists and list making as well. Like when it comes to business and just outside of my day-to-day life. So, but with that being said, what's really important I've gotten good at is prioritizing that list, putting that list in order of what to tackle first, right? And this is really a powerful piece of advice that I give you that you should really be focusing on, I would say, as your top priorities is understanding that list and really probably list that you potentially got clarity from within a coach or a mentor. Like, I mean, and obviously if you feel like you're lacking that, like this is something I go extremely deep inside of brand to clients because most coaches I just kind of feel like don't have a workflow problem. They really have a clarity and a prioritization problem, right? So once you kind of know what matters most, execution in my eyes becomes very simple, right? This then leads you to really just kind of waking up and purely focus on executing, right? And that's exactly why I kind of, like I said, do the preparation planning before, because the opposite of what that looks like is now you're waking up and you're spending 5 to 30 minutes trying to figure out what you should work on that day. And like for me, like that, there's some about that fresh energy coming in. Like I just want to dive straight in. Like you have that fresh energy. Like let's go all in. Where at the end of the day, you can just take 5 minutes to just clean up and say, all right, you know what's top of mind for you, what you need to be focusing on tomorrow, because you just finished a long day and you know where either you messed up, where you need to keep building momentum off of, or anything in that ballpark there, right? So that's really how I like to do this as well too. So, I don't know if it's just because of the dad life, like I've really kind of embraced the morning side with that, but these are some powerful kind of adjustments within my day-to-day workflow And once again, this, as you can tell, we're not talking strategy and tactics and sales conversation flow and all that. But this is how really it's been able to scale my business in a way that like I really genuinely love what I do. So, like I said, these are the main those are the main three sections: team, tech, workflow. Hope you got a ton out of this here, to say the least. Like I said here too, definitely if you like this video, hit the like button down below here. I'll make sure you get some. I want to make sure you get some value. Let me know if you did in the comments too. And absolutely too, like if you're interested in how I've really been able to kind of delegate and structure a lot of this stuff out, so I can have this creative time and get the tech stack in place and all that. Like I absolutely, and kind of just looking to go deeper with all of this to really like build that much more leverage in the business. I've got my 30-minute coaching system where I actually break all of this down and more, so you can really kind of avoid the mistakes that I made, especially early on, and copy the best parts of what's helped my business sell nearly $2 million in coaching and beyond. So, the link for that is down below in the comments, and not in the comments, right there in this the description section. Definitely, I'd highly recommend tapping in on that. And as well, if you're looking to really kind of, I guess, get another visual with this as well here too, I'll also leave down a YouTube video. I'll try and link this here above here, that really gets into a client generating system that I just feel like a lot of coaches aren't really talking about, right? So I call it the simple client getting system that, once again, no one's talking about, used by 7-figure coaches. So definitely would check that out too if you're looking to now get a little more in the tactical side of things here as you follow up with this video. But like I said, I hope you got a ton of value. Subscribe. Make sure you're watching future ones here. Hit the like button if you got some value. Drop a comment if you got questions. And I'll see you in the next one. Take care for now.